Today I'm super excited to welcome a special guest to the show. This man has been called a teenage heartthrob. He is a singer-songwriter whose career has spanned over 50 years, and he is truly a rock and roll legend. He starred in several movies, and his list of accomplishments just go on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jimmy Clanton. Jimmy, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
It's my pleasure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, you're coming through just fine.
Okay, it's great to be with you and your listeners.
Well, thank you. I'm sure they're very interested in what you have to say. You've got a lot of history behind you.
Well, yeah, I've been down the road of rock and roll for a long distance.
Yes, yes, you have, sir. You had such hits as "Just a Dream," Venus in Blue Jeans, Go Jimmy Go, and just so many more. Please talk to us a little bit about your early beginnings in the music business and how you got your big break.
Well, my roots for music come from my southern upbringing. Down there, I kind of grew up around music, grew up around the Baptist church hymnal, and from that, a love of music came to me. And by the time I was 8 years of age, I really wanted to learn to play the guitar. So I found a pawn shop, bought a $12 pawn shop guitar, got a 25-cent guitar chord book, and taught myself to play. And so around Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I was living, where I was growing up there, I began to just kind of put together little groups together, and we play together. And then eventually, in Louisiana, once you turn 18, you can actually go to the bars. And so I joined up with a group called the Rockets, and we began to play all of the clubs all along the Gulf Coast. We call them the swamp rock, swamp pop type clubs all along the Gulf Coast. And eventually a girl that was going with the piano player said, in New Orleans, for $25, you can make what they call a demo to hear what you sounded like. We went to New Orleans, and actually it was the piano player that did most of the singing in those days. I just was really wanting to be a guitar player. But we finished in about 50 minutes, and then this is kind of like a script from Happy Days, because with about 10 minutes left, the man said, well, you've paid for an hour. You finished in 50 minutes. Do you have anything else? Well, lo and behold, I hadn't told anybody this, but I was in love with my first love, and she and I were having some real problems, and I had never written a song before, but in the living room of my house, I wrote a song called I Trusted You. And so the piano player said, do you have anything, Jimmy? I said, well, I got this little song. So I ended up kind of putting it on tape. Well, 3 weeks later, got a call from Ace Records, Johnny Vincent. I didn't know that studio was the icon rhythm and blues recording studio of that whole New Orleans area. But he was in there doing a session. He liked my sound. Make a long story short, he signed me to a contract. We put the record out, and it did a lot for me locally. And then about about March of 1958, I'd gotten a call from Johnny Vincent. He said, it's time to do another session. Do you have anything else? I said, well, I've written a couple of songs. I didn't realize I could write songs, but the next thing you know, I go into the studio, and one of the songs was about my old girlfriend again, called Just a Dream. We recorded it, and everybody said, there's something about this song, Jimmy. And I had no aspirations of a future as a star. I never thought like that. I was just enjoying the moment. Well, we put the song out locally. Johnny Vincent called me, and he said, there's a new TV show on. We didn't have a lot of money in my family, so I didn't know very much about TV. I don't think we'd even had a TV by then. And he said, there's a new TV show on called American Bandstand. And he said, I have booked a performance spot for you, and you're flying to Philadelphia. Well, I'd never been on an airplane, never been, stayed in a hotel. I mean, I was really just a Louisiana kind of rawhide, wet behind the ears type guy. So I ended up going to Philadelphia, and lo and behold, I did kind of a lip sync to the song, and I think really it was the first time people had gotten to see me, because to be honest about it, I walked out there, and I started getting all this attention from the girls. And I was wondering, what's going on here?
Well, that's tough.
And so I did a lip sync of Just a Dream, and the next day Johnny Vincent got an order for over 100,000 copies of that song. And within no time at all, I was catapulted up into New York, signed a contract with a major booking agency, and the next thing you know, Alan Freed heard about me. He booked me on a show, and Alan Freed just really took to me. I became a real special favorite of his, and so I was doing all the Alan Freed shows, and then, of course, he came over to me to show one night. He said, I'm getting ready to go to Hollywood. I'm getting ready to do a major rock and roll movie, and he told me a little bit about it, and he said, I want you to play the lead of Johnny Melody in Go Johnny Go. So that's pretty much the story of how I was catapulted from Baton Rouge into the big time.
Well, that's a great story. And for those of you who may not know, Alan Freed is the disc jockey who first coined the phrase rock and roll for the music that young folks were listening to back then.
Just a dream, just a dream. All our plans and all our schemes. How could I think you'd be mine? The lies I tell myself each time. I know that we could never last. Can't seem to end the past. Just a dream I dreamed in vain. With you I'd only live in pain. Your picture is always with me. I can still hear that same mournful song. Oh, why do I love you? How can I live in misery? I know that I won't forget you. But now I know it's too late for me. Your picture is always with me. I can still hear that same mournful song. And now I sit here crying. Please leave me alone. Oh, why do I love you? How can I live in misery? But now I know it's too late for me.
For those of you who may not know, Alan Freed is the disc jockey who first coined the phrase rock and roll for the music that young folks were listening to back then. So he's quite famous in his own right, huh?
Well, Alan Freed, yes, a lot of people think that Dick Clark was one of the four front runners, but that's not true. They all really grabbed and piggybacked Alan Freed. He was the man. In fact, he was in Cleveland, Ohio in 1956, and he was the one that got the idea. He would play all the records of those hit artists, and he said, I'm going to put together a live show. Well, he got all kinds of problems. I mean, they didn't want to do that in Cleveland. But he's the first one that set up doing live shows with the artists that he was playing. And, of course, it was a tremendous success. And when New York saw that, New York just offered him the moon, come to New York from Cleveland, and he did. And, of course, he just repeated what he had done in Cleveland, and he became a huge, huge hit. And but when he saw me and he saw my song and he saw everything about me and put me on his show, and then he really loved the idea of the Teen Idol title that I got pretty much encompassed with. I don't know where that started, to be honest with you, but it did. And so that's how it all started. But Alan Freed really was the front runner, and he's the one that started it all. And, let me just say this, that I was so blessed because rather than the 60s, I started in the 50s. And the 60s were different, and here's why. In 62, you got into 63, all at once within a 5-year period, and I was there, so I guarantee I'm an expert on this. In that 5-year period, you had everything from Martin Luther King and the problems with acceptance of the blacks, and simultaneously you had Beatlemania. Beatlemania opened up the doors then for the Rolling Stones, and then you had the Vietnam War problems, and then you coupled that with Woodstock, and everything was changed within 4 to 5 years. All music was changed in 4 to 5 years. In fact, all of a sudden, if it felt good, do it, that was accepted. So I'm glad that I started in the 50s because I got a chance to be with the early days, with the Clyde McFadders and the original Platters, and the early days of Lloyd Price and myself, the original Del Viking, the original Flamingos, all of the originals, and doing all these shows with Alan Freed, because once the 60s came in, it really changed. You did not have that camaraderie and that fellowship of all of us artists from the 50s. It just never did roll over into the 60s. So I've got some great memories, to say the least, of the rock and roll movie I did with Alan. Then I did another movie called Teenage Millionaire. And I got to know everybody because I was a part of the actual beginning. And, I knew everybody from Elvis Presley on down. You name them, I did shows with them. So I've been blessed. I have had an incredible career.
The 60s were a troubling time for sure. As a retired musician, I was there too. And I know what you say is truth. I will say, from a musician standpoint, isn't it much more fun to do a show with other musicians, other groups, because you draw from each other's energy rather than doing a whole 4-hour gig by yourself? It's just not the same energy. Do you agree with that?
Well, obviously it's a lot easier, and it's great for the fans because they get to see anywhere from 4 to 8 acts from the 50s to 60s, and so they're able to really enjoy these shows. A lot of people come from all over the United States. I do these great big shows all over the nation, but I also do my personal up close and personal show, and I really enjoy doing that in different areas. It's just me and the band, and it's kind of like a living room atmosphere, and I really entertain. I went from on the stage, okay, thank you everybody, do you remember this? And then I'd sing that, and I'd say, and maybe you remember this, and then I'd sing that. I went from just a record act, and I learned how to be a complete entertainer, and that's been the fun for me. I'm an entertainer, not a record act, and I thank God for the training I've had. Let's put it that way.
And you've done it quite well, too, I might add.
Thank you.
Let's go back for just a moment. Your group, the Rockets, do you happen to remember that piano player's name?
Dick Holler.
Yes, he's a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah, I understand he lives down there in that area now.
Yes, he lives in Charleston, South Carolina. He and Merlin Jones. Merlin is a very good friend of mine now, and he has told me often about the early days with you guys playing, so I found it quite interesting.
I told her when it comes to talking, I'm the sweetest sweet talker in the world. Well, she said, you better start talking if you want me to be your girl. And she said, kissing. I'm the best young dancer in the land. Well, she looked at me with a twinkle in her eye, and then she took my hand and she said, "Go, Jimmy, go. Go, Jimmy, go." Well, I talked her off the floor when she said, "Go, Jimmy, go." And she said, "Go, Jimmy, go. Go, Jimmy, go." Well, I talked her off the floor when she said, "Go, Jimmy, go." I told her when it comes to kissing, I ain't nothing but a kissing fool. She started to giggle when I told her that I teach her things she never learned in school. And she said, "Go, Jimmy, go. Go, Jimmy, go." Well, I talked her off the floor when she said, "Go, Jimmy, go. Go, Jimmy, go. Go, Jimmy, go."
Jimmy, did you write most of your songs, or you think about half and half?
I
or
actually
what's
did, and now I didn't write Go Johnny. I didn't write Go Jimmy Go, and I didn't write Venus, but I wrote. I wrote just about all the B-sides of everything, but of course I wrote Just a Dream, and I wrote all my early songs, Letter to an Angel, A Part of Me, gee whiz, I could go on and on and on, Highway Bound. I wrote a lot of that music, and I still write. I wrote, after 30 some odd years, I just completed last year a legacy CD, and I wrote all the songs on it, recorded it at a digital recording studio down in Houma, Louisiana, called Sacalay Productions, Pershing Wells, and it's really the highlight of my career because it came out fantastic, and for what it's worth, people can get a copy of it if they go to my website, www.jimmyclanton.com, and you can order that. Plus, I've got I put together a 27-song collection of all my career from day one up until almost the present, and I have that with all the original recordings, so that's available. And I also have a gospel CD that's available on that website. So I've kind of run the gamut, and right now I'm enjoying doing shows here and there around the country, and I still enjoy entertaining, and because of Facebook, I now have so many fans on Facebook, and they are so absolutely sweet and loyal to me, and they follow me everywhere I go, all over the nation. And next year I'm going to do something, a real classic. It's going to be one of a kind, and it'll never be repeated. I'm going to do a once and once only a Bayou show down there. I'm putting that together, and I'm going to have the girls that recorded with me on my CD and the band from down there, because those are my roots, and I haven't done a up close and personal show where my roots are down there, because I was born down in the bayou. My mother was from Cut Off, Louisiana, and the reason I wasn't born there was no hospital there. I was actually born in Golden Meadow, which is right down the road. But everybody knows from down there with all my cousins, so I'm looking forward to that next year, because I'm getting up in age, and I just feel like that God has blessed me. Really, right now my health is at its peak. And I must admit, thank God, my voice is probably better than ever. So I want to do a few of these certain things while I'm still at my peak, so that I can really kind of ride off into the sunset and say, you know what, I've accomplished what I want to accomplish.
That's great. You've got a gift, and we all love you for sharing it with us. I did want to comment. I think you had 4 songs in the top 10 on Billboard charts, and each of them sold over 1 million copies. Does that sound right?
I'm not sure about 4. I know I had Go Jimmy Go, Just a Dream, Venus and Blue Jeans, and from what I never kept up with all of that. From what I understand, the song that Neil Sedaka wrote for me called Another Sleepless Night, that made the top 20. I think at one time in 1958, 59, I think from what somebody told me one time is that I had 5 songs in the Billboard Top 100.
Yeah.
So things it was kind of interesting back then.
What I'm reading, A Letter to an Angel was one of them.
Okay.
And Ship on
I
a Stormy
forgot about
Sea.
that. Yeah, I've done so many.
yeah, I know. I have a list of your library here, and it's very impressive, I might add.
Yeah.
She's Venus in blue jeans, Mona Lisa with a ponytail. She's a walking, talking work of art. She's the girl who stole my heart. My Venus in blue jeans is the Cinderella I adore. She's my very special angel too, a fairy tale come true. They say there's 7 wonders in the world, but what they say is out of date. There's more than 7 wonders in the world. I just met number 8. My Venus in blue jeans is everything I hope she'd be. A teenage goddess from above, and she belongs to me. My Venus in blue jeans is everything I hope she'd be. A teenage goddess from above, and she belongs to me.
Jimmy, on February 3rd, 1959, there was a tragedy associated with the music industry, that being the plane crash that claimed the lives of Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens and J.P. Richardson, also known as the Big Bopper. Can you tell us your connection to that event and how it affected your life?
Well, as I said earlier, I had already done shows with everybody in the business. People have to realize that in 1957, 58, and 59, you didn't have the Internet, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have FM, you only had an AM station, and so you only had, I know this is hard to believe for people, but there were probably only maybe 50, and that's stretching it, 50 artists at the most in 1958, 59 that were internationally worldwide known. And I did shows with all of them because that's all there was. You only had about 6 record companies, so it was a little close-knit group. So having said that, I worked with everybody. I had already done shows with Buddy Holly. I knew Bopper. I knew Ritchie Valens. I knew everybody. And what had happened was that I was awakened in the hotel. I was on a major tour. Still had 2 more weeks to go, and the promoter knocked on the door and said, very, very grimly, he said, "Jimmy, there's been a tremendous accident," and he explained to me what happened, and he said, "The promoter of that tour insists that the tour go on. Would you be willing to leave this tour and fly up to Iowa and to pick up that tour and finish it out of the one that they died. And so that's what I did. And so initially it was me, just initially me, and I think Frankie Avalon, and there was another guy, Frankie Sardo, I think. I don't remember too much about him. I don't even know what songs he made, but of course, Deanna the Belmonts. And so somebody told me later on that some other artist picked up on that show, but that's what happened. I flew up. I guess the most poignant part of the story for me is that I go, and it's time to leave on the bus, and I get up on that Greyhound bus, and as I do, I look down the long corridor of the bus to the very back, and I just stopped in my tracks because there was all of their clothing. So these guys had not even had a chance in that small plane to take their clothing, even to the point where Buddy's guitar was still back there. So my part of the show, how do you really entertain under such a heaviness? So I pretty much just did my songs and did a tribute to Buddy and played his guitar. So that was my connection. Yes, I did. I took their place on that tour.
Well, that was a sad day for rock and roll in particular, but for a nation that loved music, that was really a tragic loss.
If I owned all the gold in the world, that wouldn't change how I feel, 'cause you can't replace what somebody feels with all the wealth untold. If I owned a land's land, my darling, I'd only wish for one thing, my darling, and that'd be to be with you for eternity. I was a fool, I went and hurt you. Give me a chance to make it up to you. I'll do the best I can. Oh my darling, won't you hear my plea? If I own all that's left, my darling, I'd only wish for one thing, my darling, and that could be to be with you for eternity.
I want you to know how much we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and we got a lot of fans in this area that are very interested in what you've got to say. I'll ask you one quick question here, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
I notice you're a fan of LSU, of course, and they're playing by University of South Carolina Gamecocks this weekend in baseball. Who do you think is going to win that series?
Well, the Tigers are the Tigers, and Tigers are bigger and they're stronger and they weigh more than Gamecocks.
Well, that's a fact.
I don't know what else to say.
That's all right. Well, I just hope it's a good game. Jimmy, okay. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. I want to tell you that your music brings back so many happy memories for me. I was a young man in high school and dating, and your music created such a wonderful atmosphere for young lovers. So thank you for sharing your gift of music with the world, and God bless you.
It's truly my pleasure, and if I started a fan base, I have a tremendous following. If anybody out there wants to friend request me on Facebook, they will love my site. We have a lot of fun, and I play a lot of music, and it's just a great time with fans and myself from that generation.
Yes, it is, and we appreciate you taking your time to share it with us today.
My pleasure, and we can do this again if you want to somewhere down the road.
That would be great. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
God bless you. Thank you, and God bless everybody, and I appreciate all the listeners out there.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
Just a dream, just a foolish dream of a fool. Dreams of a fool. Please make my dreams come true. Now you've gone and said goodbye. I keep trying not to cry. Time goes on, as wise men say, and every fool must pay.